Hey, so we're here for another lesson in the Peaceful Solution, and this week we're going to be talking about maintaining your self-control. Okay, so now you got it. Now you got to keep it, right? Okay. So first I want to start with review for you all here. What is necessary for communication to be successful? What is necessary for communication to be successful? Go ahead. So we do need a speaker or a giver and a receiver, right? And both parties have to be willing to participate, right? In order for communication to be successful. Okay, what should you do if you find yourself in a conflict and the other person is disrespectful and on the verge of losing control?
Practice self-control?
Practice self-control, right? Also put to use the RESPOND acronym, right? Remain calm, right? Evaluate the situation. Stay objective, Stay objective. Overcome the desire to retaliate, right? Negate the negative, right? And be determined. Put that RESPOND acronym to work, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into maintaining the self-control, okay? Obtain and then maintain, okay? So I want you to think of your most valuable possession, you guys out there in YouTube land. Okay? How do you care for it? You know, the iPod that you just got, or the new laptop that you just got, or the new cell phone. How do you take care of it? You definitely don't throw it around everywhere and, you know, put it wherever, let your dog eat it. Whatever it might be, right? You take care of it. You do certain things and you make rules about it, you know, whether someone can see it or whether someone can use it. You make rules about it so that way you can maintain that possession. So I had you think about that because in the same way that we take care of our most prized possession, a positive character is one of the most important possessions that you can own and value, and that also must be taken care of and maintained, right? Obtain and then maintain, right? Okay? So now you know that self-control is an important part of developing that positive character. Whether you're able to successfully handle emotions such as anger, resolve conflicts, and communicate in a peaceful manner depend upon your willingness to practice self-control. So in this lesson, you'll learn about various influences that can affect your ability to maintain your self-control. You will also learn how to apply self-control, to distinguish between positive and negative influences. When you're able to consistently apply self-control to withstand negative influences in all their various forms, you will be protecting and maintaining your most prized possession, which is your character. All right. So the question of the day, like we have every single week, right? The question of the day. What are influences? Tell me, what are influences? It's something that can influence the way you think, the way you feel, and the way that you act. Influences are something or someone who can affect the way you think, feel, and act, just like you just said, okay? But what you didn't mention is it could be something or someone, okay? Influences also have an effect on your values, and we're really going to go into that, okay, a little bit later, but we're just going to skim the surface on what influences can really influence you to do, okay? So, for starters, there are many types of influences. Some may be subtle and appear to be harmless, and others may be a little bit more dangerous. So here's something I want you to consider. Consider this. A popular soft drink company boosted its sales by flashing a bottle of its product on the screen for less than a second while people watched a movie. So what was the result? In this study, the people who people were obviously affected by the fact that this popular soda, soft drink, was flashed on the screen. They immediately felt thirsty, and right after the movie, they went to go to get that particular soft drink. Okay? So, influences are powerful. This is just one of the examples. Now, is that to say that everybody who, sees some subliminal message somewhere is going to immediately want to go do it? No, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But influences are powerful, because consider this. This type of influence that comes in the form of subliminal messaging was actually outlawed. That's how powerful it is, right? And consider this, Walmart even had a study done where they put a subliminal message in their, what do you call it? The store music that you hear when you go into the store that said, "I will not steal." And it cut down, this study proved that it cut down on their shoplifting about 15%. So you see how powerful it is. Okay, so the important thing to building a positive character is to use self-control to distinguish between these negative or positive influences. Okay? So, in order to be able to distinguish, you need to know what it is, right? So first, what are positive influences? Positive influences will build your character. Furthermore, they will not conflict with a moral choice. And they come in many, many different forms. They can be a person, an experience, a book that you've read, or even a show that you have seen. Okay? So, for example, maybe in your household, you've had somebody who has, you've had your parents encourage you to take your education seriously, right? That's considered an influence. They've influenced you to take your education seriously. Okay? So just as there are positive influences, adversely, we have negative influences. Okay? So on the other hand, negative influences cause you to make choices that are immoral, or in other words, choices that you know are going to cause harm to you, yourself, others, and the environment. Okay? So consider this also. Two major areas of influence come in media, or in media entertainment, are TV and movies. Okay? And consider this also. According to the Nielsen Media Research 2000, the average child between the ages of 2 and 17 watched approximately 19 hours and 40 minutes of TV a week. That's almost an entire day in front of the TV. And that was in the year 2000, right? With our increased avenues of media, we can now watch free movies on the internet, and we can watch movies and TV on our iPods and things like that. Imagine how much it's increased in the year 2010, right? Okay. And consider this also. By the age of 18, the child would have viewed 200,000 acts of violence on television. 200,000. So, what does that have to do with anything? It desensitizes a person. So we're going to get into that. Okay, that's very important. Many studies prove that witnessing violent acts influence people to choose violence as a means of solving conflicts. How does this have significance? Continuing on, numerous studies show acts of violence have the potential to harm the minds of children and even adults like me and possibly you, right? It has the potential, okay? Witnessing acts of violence leads to desensitization. And what is desensitization? It makes it more likely that people will respond without self-control. So when you're desensitized to something because of you seeing repeated violent acts over a specific amount of time, it makes it less likely that you'll respond with care and concern when someone else gets hurt. Right? How many people in this room have at one point or another laughed at somebody getting hurt? Right? See, that's what it's doing to us. is desensitizing us to that, to all people have some type of value and need to be respected as such. Okay? So, same thing with, I always talk about TV shows. There's certain TV shows that a lot of us have not even realized there is violence in those TV shows. Why? Because we're so used to seeing this violence. You know, we've gone to every single Saw movie, and we've gone to who knows what. I don't remember that movie where that guy had the nails coming out of his head or whatever.
Hellraiser.
Yeah. Right? We've gone to all those movies. We've seen Halloween, you know, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and it's desensitized us to actually see shows that even you would think your children, it's okay for your children to watch, actually have violence in it. Okay? What about Bugs Bunny? Right? What about Bugs Bunny? Full of violence, by the way. Think about it. Elmer Fudd trying to kill a bunny all the time. Right? Okay. So it's not as harmless as you may think. Okay? It causes a desensitization. Furthermore, being desensitized also, like how we talked about, means that you're more likely to think that, you know, it's okay if I lash out at this person. You're more likely to accept violence as a means, and it doesn't mean necessarily physical violence leading up to murder. It means check yourself. Check yourself. Are you a person who's going to lash out at someone, right? Insult someone, right? Devalue someone, right? This is all a result, and studies have shown this is all a result of desensitization. You stop recognizing that the next man deserves respect. Okay? Alright, so monkey see, monkey do. There are also graphic and explicit messages about sex on both TV and in movies. And consider this as well. 1 in 4 teenagers claim that they've gotten ideas about sexual activity off of movies. Right? Okay? So furthermore, a lot of us, even on the adult level, right? Even on the adult level, we may have gotten a pickup line. We may have gotten a pickup line. We may have gotten certain ideas, right? This is all because it does have an impact on how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. Okay? So, what I want you out there in YouTube land to think about is based on what I just told you about 1 in 4 teenagers claim they got their ideas, I'm not saying what ideas, but ideas off of movies and entertainment. Do you think that seeing numerous TV shows and movies contributes to increased sexual behavior within your particular age group? Think about that, okay? Consider that. Even jot it down, all right? Really consider the things that are around you and how they're affecting how your peers think and how you think. Okay? Yes?
I remember one time in my old neighborhood, these guys that got into it with my brother. This goes back to the music. Music also has an influence. They were trying to, like, I guess, lure my brother outside, and while they was playing music in the background, like they was playing like basically like fight music almost, sort of.
Really?
So it's like, you know, you can see how it has some type of influence on their brains, basically.
Right. And that's what we're going to talk about next, okay? More than just a great beat, okay? More than just a great beat. I know you don't know anybody who doesn't like some type or some form of music, you know? From rock to reggae to rhythm and blues to alternative to hip-hop. Music speaks all languages. Have you ever had the feeling, you know, when a song comes on, you know, it's an old song, you knew exactly what you were doing when that song first came out. You knew you knew exactly where you were, you knew what you were thinking, how it made you feel, right? Because music speaks to us in certain ways. And that's why music throughout time, they've been using music as a way to convey their ideas, to talk about things ranging from political injustice, or, you know, like Bob Marley used to talk about political injustices, right? Artists use that music to convey their feelings, their thoughts, their ideologies, right? But furthermore, now it seems like it's gotten a little worse, that music is just being used as as mainstream pornography, right? But it's true, right? So think about it. Just as a song you're listening to can, you know, it makes you feel a certain way, it makes you feel glad, maybe you're feeling down, and, you know, that song is just, doesn't it seem like, I heard somebody say this before, doesn't it seem like there's always a song for every single mood and every single situation you've ever gone through in life, right? So, and then it causes you to feel certain ways, right? And we all know this, we can all testify to this, right? It either motivates us, or it either motivates us, or maybe justifies when we're feeling down, okay? So think about that. It's more than just a great beat, okay? Anything you spend so much time doing, right, including watching TV, listening to music, it's going to affect you in some type of way, okay? Studies have shown whatever you put into there's a conscious and there's a subconscious mind. Your subconscious records everything, even the things that you're not directly looking at, right? Things that are in your peripheral vision, okay? Whatever you put into your subconscious is going to affect you consciously, okay? All right, so here's something to think about. Music is powerful, like we just said. The rhythmic beat and repetitive words can have a hypnotic effect on the listener, right? If you've ever seen that occur on the dance floor, right? Makes you want to move in certain ways, right? Music also influences how we feel, like we just talked about. It influences how we feel. Okay. All right, so another thing I wanted to talk about, there's a news article of truly how powerful music is, right? And it was a story of, I believe it was 2 boys, right, who, it was a news article where the doctors were saying, you know, it's becoming increasingly hard to treat depression. Why? Because it's not necessarily that these kids are depressed, or these adolescents are depressed. Some of them are just acting out fantasies, right, in terms of suicide. So this particular news article was after listening to a certain song with certain suicidal lyrics, these 2 boys went out. One of them took a sawed-off shotgun and blew off the other's head and tried to blow off his. He survived, although later on, excuse me, later on, he slipped into a coma and died. Okay? So that's something to consider. Music is powerful. Now, I know probably some of you are out there looking at this like, well, I mean, that's not going to occur to me. I'm not going to become a killer, right? I'm not going to become a killer, you know? I'm not going to have suicidal tendencies. Yes, that may be true. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying everybody is going to become a killer after listening to 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying or something, you know?
Lil Jon.
Lil Jon. You know, not saying everybody's going to become a killer, right? But once again, music is an influential force, right? No wonder it affects the way you think, okay? And once again, when we talked about influences affect your values, okay? I challenge you all out there. Check yourself. Look in the mirror. What do you value? Okay? Do I value 50 Cent's lifestyle and not developing a positive moral character? Do I value, you know, I don't know, candy-painted cars or, you know, all those glamorous, vain things, right? Do I value all of that and not becoming a better person on the inside? Because once again, it's not what it's on the outside. Character versus personality. Okay? Now that's not to say anything, nothing's wrong with, anything's wrong with having a certain preference for things. But as it was told to me a long time ago, don't let that be what you're all about. Okay? So check yourself. What are you valuing? And then you can see and you can answer the question, am I being negatively influenced by what I'm listening to and what I'm watching? Okay? That's a part of self-control. So, once again, self-control is the key. Alright? And it's important. Excuse me. Negative influences from these sources can affect the way some people behave. As we just seen in that news article I told you about. It can affect the way people behave. And there was also the Columbine shootings. A lot of students who witnessed that were saying that these people were actually acting out a movie when they did what they did on that school. Okay? So, it can affect your emotions. It can contribute to outbursts of aggression and violence. Once again, like we said, witnessing and listening to repeated acts of violence desensitizes you and makes you more likely to respond in a negative way. It can be a factor why people engage in certain sexual acts, right? Because we see it on TV, you know, we see it somewhere. But it's up to you to make wise and responsible choices regarding how you are entertained. So it's all in how you should react. So how should we react? Okay? This is where the self-control comes in. How should we react? And I want you all to write this down, please. Okay? Recognize whether the influence is positive or negative. Okay? Once again, like I said, check yourself. Right? Check yourself. E. Examine your options. What do I have to do? Okay? What can I do about this? If I find out it's a negative influence, what can I do? Okay? Go ahead. A. Act with positive moral character. Okay? Act with positive moral character.
Because you won't suffer.
Oh, because you won't suffer the consequences of an immoral character. Okay? C. Consider the consequences or rewards. That goes back to our STOP acronym. Stopping, thinking, considering our options, then proceeding with the right choice. You know, considering the rewards or the consequences of that action, right? Okay? And then T. Think about making the right choice. Okay? Think about making the right choice. So, real quick, I just want to go in a little bit in depth. So, R, the recognizing whether the influence is positive or negative. Remember, a negative influence can be dangerous and can affect your ability to make positive choices. I will say that again. Remember, okay? Remember, a negative influence can be dangerous and can affect your ability to make positive choices. A positive influence shows value for life and encourages the building of a positive moral character. Okay? E. Alright, examining your options. Once you've determined an influence is negative, consider your choices. Okay? And some of them can be really simple, right? If I'm watching something, you know, something all of a sudden comes up vulgar, sexually explicit, what's your option? What's the simplest option you can do?
Change the channel.
Change the channel. Turn on the Discovery Channel. Something where you're going to learn, right? Right? Where was I? A. Act with positive moral character. Be prepared to make a stand and do what is right for the building of your character. Be prepared to make a stand. And no, it doesn't mean you're uncool, right? Because you decided to change that channel and do your homework or something, right? It doesn't make you uncool. It makes you that more able and willing to make that positive choice. Okay? C, consider the rewards and consequences. The consequences of negative influences may not be obvious right away. Okay? It may not be obvious right away. Please do not be fooled into thinking that just because there's nothing visibly that you can see right now. Right? That's not to say other people aren't seeing it. Right? It's all going into your subconscious. And once again, everything, studies have shown, everything that enters into that subconscious mind is going to become part of your behavior. Okay? And it could be in a subtle way or an extreme way, like we've seen in those suicide cases, right? Okay. So think about that. Right? So think about that. Think about that. Stop and think. Alright, how is this going to affect me in the long run? Okay? And then think about the benefits of practicing self-control and making the right choice. By filtering out negative influences, you are building your positive character. And you can be a role model to someone else. That's very important. You can be a role model to someone else. Okay? Conformity, so here's another influence. Conformity and peer pressure. Okay? To conform. What is to conform? Is to change your beliefs, attitudes, and actions in order to meet certain standards. Okay? Now, all people conform in one way or another. Conformity is a normal part of living. Okay? So, for example, fashion designers, they depend on people to conform to their standards of fashion so they can remain in business, right? It's just a normal part of living. But it's what you are willing to conform, and that's based upon your character, your values, and how you were influenced. Okay? So, for example, a certain designer like Baby Phat or what's her name, Kimora Lee Simmons comes out with a new line, and you're influenced because maybe the clothes are going down the runway and it looks all glamorous. Oh, okay, I can wear this, you know.
Or by the person.
Or by the person. Maybe you highly respect Kimora Lee Simmons, right? You're influenced, there's that word again, you're influenced to buy her clothes. Okay? So that's one example. But peer pressure is one example of influences that plays an important role to what you conform to. It has a major effect on your character. If you don't think you're influenced by your peers, then consider this. Have you ever had a situation where, you know, a group of friends, they want to go out to somewhere to eat, right? And you don't really want to go out to eat, you know, like, you're like, I got some homework to do, or I got some work to do, I don't really want to. And your friends are like, oh, come on, you know, you're going to be there for half an hour, that's okay, right? But you really don't want to go. Well, rather than protest, because you know they'll give you a hard time, right? You go ahead anyway, right? Okay, yeah, I'll go, right? You'll go ahead anyway, right? So that's just one other scenario. So if you've had any of those experiences, then you're familiar with what it feels like to put aside your own likes and dislikes in order to be a part of the group, okay? Thinking you have to go along with everyone else in order to fit in, to avoid feeling as if you are weird, makes peer pressure an important issue, and peer pressure another powerful influence, okay? But peer pressure also, what's great to remember is that peer pressure is not always external, okay? So, for example, you get involved with a new group of friends who like certain types of bags or purses or something like that, okay? Or you get into a group of people that act a certain way or talk a certain way, okay? So with the example of like a bag or a purse, right? You feel like nobody told you needed to get that same type of purse, but in order to kind of not stand out you know, when your friends are walking around, you go ahead and buy that purse, right? That specific type of purse. And that's just one example, okay? So it's not always external. Nobody told you to do it, but you put pressure on yourself. And that's a lot of times what we do. Sometimes we put pressure on ourselves, even though nobody told us to fit the status quo. See what I'm saying? To fit that status quo. All right? So remember that. Peer pressure is not always external, and peer pressure is a powerful force. Okay? And there are two sides to every coin. Okay? Two sides to every coin. Just like how you can have positive peer pressure. So for example, you have a group of friends that are going to motivate you to study for that test or that interview, or to make responsible choices. You have friends or peers or family members who are going to encourage you to make the right choice. If you get into a conflict, they're not going to be the person who's saying, yeah, I bet you ain't going to hit him, right? They're going to be that friend that's going to be like, no, you know, this is not worth it. Let's walk away. See what I'm saying? Just like you can have friends like that, you have peers that are going to encourage you to make the wrong choice. Okay? Are you going to let her get away with that? Are you going to? You should hit her. I would hit her. Right? But just like we talked about a couple weeks ago, that doesn't sound too much like a friend, because they're not putting you above themselves, meaning they're not considering the hurt that can come to you if you retaliate, right? And I personally wouldn't consider that a friend if they don't consider me an important person to keep safe. See what I'm saying? All right. But peer pressure also can push you to taking risk-taking behaviors, okay? What are risk-taking behaviors? Premarital sex, right? Use of illegal drugs, underage drinking, or drinking to excess. Remember what we talked about a few classes ago? That what actually occurs when you drink to excess is your brain goes into panic mode, right? Your brain goes into panic mode, get this out, I need it out, and it actually shuts off the capillaries to your brain, right? That's where we get the slurred speech and the passing out, right? So if your body knows how to make a positive moral choice, why don't we know how to make a positive moral choice, right? Okay, so that's a risk-taking behavior as well. And that's a lot of things. That's one of the number one things that people do to fit in and not seem weird, right? So-called weird. Okay? Now, also, to talk about a risk-taking behavior, premarital sex. Okay? There are 3 million adolescents catching STDs each year. What's an adolescent? From teenage to about 24 years old. Okay? So it's not just teenagers. Okay? So 3 million, think about that. 3 million people catching STDs each and every year. Would you jump into a pool or an ocean that has 3 million sharks in it? So why play Russian roulette with your life? The more partners you have, the more susceptible you are to catching some type of incurable disease. Okay? So these are all risk-taking behaviors. Keep that in mind. Don't let anybody push your buttons into doing it. Okay? That's what self-control is about. Stopping and considering the consequences of a certain action. Stopping and considering the rewards if you make the right choice. Okay? So a lot of people get pressured into those things sometimes. And once again, the important thing, peer pressure is not external. Not always external. So does that mean someone's coming up into you saying, yeah, man, you better have sex with so-and-so, or else you're not my friend anymore? No. Sometimes, like I said before, we put pressure on ourselves to do it. Right? Okay? Not considering the consequences. All the consequences. Okay, next slide. So, positive, what can you do about it? Be your own person. Be your own person, okay? The key to developing self-control to resist negative peer pressure is to learn how to be your own person, okay? Be your own person. Isn't it ironic that both positive and negative influences can come from the same source? So, for example, just like from TV, you can have sexual content, or TV, you can have things like the Discovery Channel, you know, learn about the universe or something like that, right? So they can both come from the same source. So the same thing holds true for your friends and your peers and those you choose to surround yourself with, okay? I want to emphasize that word choose, all right? It's a choice. It's not something impulsive or something you don't think about, okay? You make the choice to put negative peers around yourself, okay? Peers can be both positive and negative influences, just like we talked about earlier. But in developing positive character, what you should stand for should be moral excellence, okay? Moral excellence. So what does that entail? That means you should value the lives of others and yours, okay? What does that mean? Making the choice not to drink to excess, making the choice not to play Russian roulette with your life, with premarital sex, or any other risk-taking behaviors, right? That shows self-respect and value to yourself. That means you care about yourself, not just others as well, okay? Developing self-control is a part of standing for moral excellence. Developing self-control, responsibility, and humility, okay? Remember what we talked about in controlling our anger, not being humble, okay? Remember what we talked about last time doesn't necessarily mean that we have to win an argument, right? We can be humble, we can accept correction, right? We can avoid conflicts in that specific way. Next slide. So, I'm going to give you another acronym to help you to set your mind in advance, not to allow anyone to influence you in a specific way, okay? P, persist in moral excellence, right? Stand up for what you know is right, all right? E, educate yourself. Oh, that's a big one. That is a big one, because a lot of times we can get tricked into immoral decisions because we don't educate ourselves on that decision, okay? Meaning, once again, doesn't mean you need a degree, doesn't mean you need a certificate. Educating yourself about the facts. So if someone approaches you with some, you know, story or some suggestion of a choice you should make, yeah, man, you should go to that party, man. It's gonna be kids, man, right? Because you took the time to educate yourself on the effects of drinking, which are not immediate effects, by the way. Not immediate, meaning you won't see them now, but later on when your liver failing, right? You're gonna know why. Because you educated yourself on that, you can make the positive choice to say no. That's gonna harm me in the long run. That's having respect and value for yourself. Okay? So positive choices aren't just, you know, old-fashioned and boring. It's you're having respect and value for yourself. Okay? Okay, E. Evaluate the influences, whether negative or positive. Once again, take it back to the react. Evaluate, is this influence negative or positive? Remember, an influence can be something or someone. Okay? R, and resist the negative. Always resist the negative. Once you've decided it's a negative, resist it. Like, until you can't resist it no more. Okay? S. And succeed. Success is achievable, okay? But we have to be determined to make those right choices. And we have to make it consistent. Make it a habit, okay? Because we can't make the right choice one day and make the wrong choice the next day. Now, that's not saying we can't make a mistake, right? But we will evaluate. Another part of self-control is evaluating that mistake or that choice, that poor choice. I'm sorry. Nothing's not really a mistake, right? Evaluate the poor choice and evaluate what you can do to make it better next time. That's applying self-control, okay? All right, so use that acronym. So the heat is on. The heat is on. The heat will be on for you to use your self-control to react appropriately and to your peers, okay? The heat will be on you. The spotlight will be on you because, for example, you could be sitting in a situation that's completely positive. Maybe you and some friends are just chilling, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, hey, let's go, you know, you want to have some booze, man? Or something like that. I don't know. Something of that sort, okay? So situations like that can come on pretty quickly, right? So you could be, like I said, you could just be chilling and then all of a sudden someone comes and bumps you your way and then your friends are like, man, aren't you going to hit her? Him? Her? Right? So be prepared. Set your mind in advance for those situations. Once you've decided to obtain that positive character, set your mind in advance for those situations. I know that's what I have to do a lot of times. If I'm aware, if I'm going to be around someone, well, I most likely am not going to be around anyone who's negative, has a negative character. But if I do have to be around someone who's maybe I know is notorious for talking about other people, right? I don't want that influence, I don't want that behavior to influence me, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times when someone's making fun of somebody, even adults, I've seen even adults, people, college people, making fun of other people because of the way they're dressed or something like that. Make that choice. Set your mind in advance. I'm not about to engage in this foolishness. You know, it could be as easy as saying that. I'm not going to engage in this. I'm not going to partake in this because that's not showing respect for the next person, right? Okay? So the heat will be on. Think about in advance. What would you say? What would you do? People out on YouTube, man, think about that. Think about past situations where you didn't stand up or maybe you did stand up for what was right. Okay? Keep that in mind. And if it was a situation where you didn't stand up for what was right, set your mind in advance if that situation comes around again to do what's right. Okay? Because sometimes self-control takes a lot of talking to ourselves. Doesn't mean you're crazy, but it takes a lot of talking to yourself. Okay? Alright. So one final thought for everyone, that we only went through only a couple of the negative influences that you will encounter. The internet, books, magazines, and people other than your peers and family can also influence you. Like the TV, movies, and friends, these influences can be both positive and negative, and it is up to you. It's not up to him, it's not up to her, it's not up to your mom, it's not up to your pops, right? It's up to you to set your mind in advance, okay, to make that positive choice, to distinguish between the negative influences and the positive influences. And once you've encountered a negative influence, consider those choices, consider those options that we talked about, okay? What could you do? Consider the consequences if you allow this to influence you. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a television show, a billboard, what have you, okay? Because we've seen a lot of cases where women and young girls are affected by what they may see on a billboard, model or something like that. You see, influences can be as subtle as that, right? And once again, they're not external, right? So you may have, just by you seeing that billboard, it made you feel like you needed to obtain that look, right? Which is why we have a lot of problems with young women and eating disorders and etc. and all those things nowadays, okay? So it's up to you. Set your mind in advance. Determine between the positive and negative, right? and then negate the negative, accentuate the positive. Okay? So building a positive moral character, let that be your #1 priority. Like one a great peaceful solution teacher said, character can't take away from anything in your life. You can place character, positive character development at #1 in your life because it's not going to take away from anything else. It's not going to take you a little extra moment. It's not going to take you out of your homework. It's going to help you to get your homework done. Be responsible, right? Prioritize. Choose the right thing to do. It's going to help you to get self-control, right? Building a positive character. It's going to help you within your friendships to have positive communication like we talked about last week, right? How to solve conflicts appropriately, how to avoid conflicts appropriately, right? Character development cannot take away anything in your life. Your friends, your family, your significant other, whoever, okay? Make that your #1 priority and set your mind to it, okay? So, quick recap, okay? An influence is something that, or someone that can affect the way I think, feel, and act, okay? We've seen that just like we talked about, okay? Positive influences will motivate me to make choices and decisions that will build my character. That's a positive influence. It will not tear down that character. A negative influence can cause me to make choices that are immoral, that are not in your best interest, that could cause harm to you or someone else, right? The environment, that's an immoral choice. TV, movies, songs, video games, etc. can be sources of both positive and negative influences, okay? So keep that in mind, all right? Witnessing repeated acts of violence and sexual behavior leads to desensitization, right? Desensitization. What did we talk about desensitization was? It is meaning you are more susceptible to responding in a violent way. It may be a small violent way, such as lashing out, right? Or it could be a big violent way, lashing out with a fist, right? Okay. So react. Remember that REACT acronym. I hope you all wrote it down. I hope you all posted it on your door. REACT, okay? And I must use self-control at all times to distinguish negative influences from positive ones. You stop, you think, you consider those options, and you proceed with the right choice, okay? And the last one, I don't have to be a robot letting others push my buttons. No, you don't have to be a robot letting your friends push your buttons, right? Letting your peers, I should say, because it's not always just friends. You do not have to be a robot. That's a big thing about this lesson. You have a choice not to allow anyone to influence you to do anything you know is wrong. You know it's going to cause harm to you or someone else. You have a choice for that, okay? We can't sit here and say, well, you know, I just did it without thinking, you know. No, we think. Remember in the past lessons, we think all the time, right? We think, even though maybe instantaneously, but we think all the time, and we make choices all the time, okay? All right. So I want to thank you for tuning in today. It was a great lesson, and I encourage you once again, don't be a robot letting people push your buttons. Don't be a robot, okay? Guard against those negative influences and continue on in your positive character development. Thank you.